How you guys doing? So that long bio doesn't mean I'm accomplished; just means I'm old. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to be able to do this because we've got a lot of intellectual capital that we're going to share from. I'm going to learn from. I'm sure you guys are too. And I'd be remiss if I was afforded this opportunity without where's Clint? Anyway, the Tech Bridge is doing is honestly a labor of love. And we were with a small supporter group last week, and we were getting together, strategizing. So you guys know that this is not just a 9 to 5. This is round the clock thinking about how they can bridge that digital divide. Also, got to give it up from a good buddy, Dwayne, about to be chair of a Georgia CIO next year, incoming chair, but a good buddy for this wonderful space. And I'm excited to talk about this topic as well. I mean, as we know with this AI, and let's be clear, we're talking about Gen AI because we've been using AI for years, looking for anomalies on the sim and what have you. But it's this generative AI that's taking it to the next level. And God forbid when it gets merged with quantum computing, that power source that the representative was talking about us needing, we're going to have those challenges. Are we consuming more than we make or we produce? And so it's just exciting, and we have a cross section represented here from legal to all types of IT leaders. And what we know again is resistance is futile. This is not going anywhere. So it's about how you use it, how you employ it, and can you do it responsibly and within those guidelines. But we'll jump right in because I haven't had anything to drink yet, so we're not going to long. But I would like to invite our panelists to come up and take their seats. And as they're taking their seats, I'd like to thank our panel sponsor, MoveWorks. Yeah. So I'm just going to start with these introductions. So I'm honored to introduce Gina Schoonmaker. Gina Schoonmaker is the Director of Data Science, AI, and Machine Learning at Insight Global. I might try to steal her. But, where she leads cross-functional teams focused on building AI systems and ensuring they drive measurable business impact with a background in natural language processing and a proven track record in applying machine learning. In real world problems, she is passionate about practical innovation in business. And please join me in welcoming Gina to the panel. She works for Insight Global for now. Joe Finley. So welcome Joe Finley, a nationally recognized litigator and construction law expert who is now helping lead the legal industry's exploration of artificial intelligence. With over 25 years of experience handling complex, high-stakes disputes from nuclear energy to stadium construction, Joe brings a deep understanding of risk, regulation, and innovation. Today, he's advising clients and speaking nationally on the legal and ethical implications of agentic AI, helping businesses and leaders like yourselves navigate this fast evolving landscape with clarity and caution. Caution, I like that. And we have Remy Dion. Remy brings over 20 years of global consulting and product leadership experience and is a recognized expert in conversational AI and autonomous agents. He works closely with Microsoft's top customers to design and launch innovative agentic solutions using Copilot Studio. A passionate technologist and frequent speaker at global conferences, Remy is here to share his insights on what's next in AI-powered engagement. And we're going to jump right in. I'm pretty excited. I'm not using readers. Because I was telling you, but I'm 55. This is a lot. Quick story. So we were out hanging out with some buddies, and we were looking at the menu at the bar, and somebody says, "I'm here." And they passed the menu out, and I was like, "Does anybody have readers?" Like 5 hands came out. So I was like, I found my tribe. But we'll jump right in. And the first question is for all the panelists. So agentic AI is creating a lot of buzz, but from your vantage point, what do you see as its most transformative potential in today's business landscape? And we'll just start ladies first.
All right, into it, shall we? So agentic AI, we heard this word earlier, but it's really the idea of how autonomous these agents are and how we no longer have just a virtual assistant who we have to keep prompting and keep asking questions of, but instead we have a partner, a proactive collaborator who we can give tasks, give outcomes that we are looking for, and then give it the right guardrails, right, Joe? We give it the guardrails, and then we make sure that we get that output that we're looking for. That autonomy, that ability to see these agents take off and work by themselves, be that proactive partner, that's where I think it's transforming business the most.
I think it's a perfect segue when you talked about those guardrails, Charlie, go expert now.
Yeah, so I mean, we went from Gen AI to this, right? We went from prompts to creating something to autonomous decision making, right? And so at least in my world, and I focus a lot on the impact on the legal profession, it's taking over big tasks. I mean, huge things like discovery, because it can process volumes of information so fast in ways that, would take humans months. So gone are the days of, a room like this full of lawyers clicking through documents, trying to realize whether they're relevant or how important they are or whether they're privileged. That is all going to be automated in the near future. And its application in every business is going to have something like that, right? And that's where I'll talk later about the compliance side. I mean, depending on how you use it, that raises some real issues about using it ethically, using it responsibly, complying with a bunch of laws that are just kind of popping up like mushrooms here and there with no kind of central focus. But we'll talk about that.
Yeah. And who wants a room full of lawyers anyway? He did.
Well, yeah. Trust me, it's taking over the grunt work, the stuff a lot of times that people just hated doing to begin with. So that's not a bad thing, right?
Yeah, right.
And I'm the autonomous aspect of it really resonate, but let's not lose what we have on focus tonight is the human in the center of that innovation. And autonomy can also be for employees or for your customers, giving them access to those tools, empower them to access knowledge, access systems, access data that in a way that is transformative. We are talking about enhancing productivity, helping every employee to be more productive, to find information faster, to do their job faster. So when I hear autonomous agent, it's great. We have technology that can do a lot of things without human interaction, but we'll discuss today that we still need a human in the loop. I mean, the robots are not taking the world over tomorrow yet, but the human in the center of AI is really important, because if you empower your employee and your customers with the right tool, you will be differentiating yourself from other businesses. Your employee will go faster, your employee will achieve more, your employee may use agents to supplement their existing skills, because it's about human plus AI, not just AI instead of human.
One thing you just said there that kind of resonated, we all know the human in the loop, right? We all use that, but you just said human in the center also, and that's kind of impressive. I like it kind of segues into where we're going next. But so next question is that, as our MC kind of stated, Kristen shared, it has been proven that agentic AI lacks ethical awareness, independent creativity and vision, again with that human in the loop, without the human in the loop, and then these are human exclusive attributes. So what skills or competencies are currently undervalued in the workforce but will be essential as agentic AI becomes more prevalent? And we'll start with you again, Gina.
Sure. So one of the things that I think about when I think about agentic AI and having solutions in this space, something that we need for a skill here is the idea of systems thinking. So if you think about, if you've ever played an instrument and you've gotten really technically excellent at that instrument, that's a great skill to have. As we move forward into a world of agentic AI, what we're looking for is not just technical skill at one particular area, but the ability to be that orchestra conductor and to run an entire system. So when I think about this, I think, okay, how do we get enough skills across everything? How do we lead teams and systems as opposed to just being excellent in one particular skill? So that systems thinking, I think, will be a key thing. I think the ethical considerations is a big one. The idea that not just having people who are aware of those ethics, but people who are willing to stand up and say, okay, maybe we can use AI here, but should we? Having that ability to stop, to ask the right questions at the right time, it's one of those skills that I think we will continue to value as those questions around AI continue to be asked.
I love that we're talking about the ethical component, so we'll definitely come back to turn in the middle. But I also want to, before I forget, I want to talk about, you talked about that human center as being a differentiator. So I want you to know if you can double back on that.
Absolutely. So we see, like over the last 2 years, we've seen those agents popping up everywhere in every software that you might use today, Microsoft or not. There is now an AI assistant that can help you answer your question. And we are seeing a transition from one-to-one, like one person to one agent, to have my personal productivity assistant, to one person to a team of agents that are here for specialized tasks. And you're asking, like, what kind of skill do we need to have our employee, or what are we looking for? We are looking at that vision where the employee can be at the center of that ecosystem, but can be in control and can decide what to do, and can be, at the center of the decision-making process. So the agent can do its own autonomous thing when needed, but it can reach out to the human. And the human, at some point today or in the near future, we'll see different agents around our day-to-day job that are optimized for specific tasks. And as a pluridisciplinist, is that a word?
That works.
You get it. As someone who can kind of understand everything that those agents are doing and can be better at me at some task, I can leverage their power to do some tasks that maybe I don't know how to write code. But today, you don't necessarily need to write code in every language. As long as you know how to describe your problem and explain your logic to some AI model. Today, those AI models are really good at writing codes. I think at Microsoft, we have 30% of our code today that is being written by AI. 30%.
Wow.
It's not that we remove 30% of engineering, despite the fact that we just announced 3% of workforce reduction this week. It's also for the developers that are already in. Now they have the tools to be more efficient and to do things that they are not necessarily, capable of doing by themselves.
Yeah. So, I know other than the obvious, Joe, in terms of the ethical considerations and the guidelines, what other ways do you see the GC or that office, weighing in?
Yeah. Sorry. Look, this is an area that if you're talking about the ethical use of AI, the responsible use of AI, that's going to interplay with the law at some point, right? The law is designed, nobody wants AI to have an unintended harmful consequence. And so what you're seeing is where there is developing law, they're all focused on preventing usually a particular type of harm. So some of this depends on what you're using agentic AI for. But, we're in the United States. We don't have any federal law that governs the use of AI, and the policy changes depending on who's writing the executive order right now. But what you do have is a bunch of states that have passed laws. So Colorado's passed a very comprehensive AI Act. California has some laws, I think, at least AI touching laws in Illinois and in Connecticut, Utah, and even the city of New York has a law about the use of agentic AI in hiring. So this isn't going to be the end of it. I mean, you're going to see more states passing laws, and if you're a compliance-minded organization, what could you and should you be thinking about? Most of these haven't taken effect yet, but they will. What could you be doing now so that you're complying with these laws, and in complying with these regulations, you're doing things to hopefully make the use of the AI safer, to mitigate risk, and to prevent harm. So what the current crop of laws are basically looking at are types of AIs being used to make consequential decisions, or what they call high-risk decisions. So this is hiring, promoting, lending, who qualifies for a loan, insurance, who qualifies for insurance. Healthcare is obviously going to be an area. You see it come up with advertising. So is the AI directing ads only to a certain group to the exclusion of others? Things like that. So anything that touches the consumer or an potential employee that could result in some type of disparate impact discrimination that discriminates through its disparate impact on a protected characteristic, a race, religion, disability, you name it. And so because there's somewhat of a black box feature to agentic AI, that's been so far the primary focus. And I think this is going to evolve. We are just at the very beginning. You will probably have state laws continuing to pop up. Eventually, someone will see the need for some type of uniform act, and maybe you'll get federal legislation that will kind of tie the whole thing together. But for now, if you're a compliant, focused organization, you just gotta kind of see where these things seem to be going. And here's where they seem to be going. They are looking at what can you do proactively to make sure that your agentic AI doesn't cause harm. So they're looking at things like, and this is, I'm lumping all the laws together right now so we can just get concepts. But you're looking at either some type of bias audit or some type of comprehensive risk assessment, where you look at, okay, what data was the AI trained on? Is there some disproportionate or baked in bias or discrimination in the data itself? Was there an issue with the algorithm? Could it just be because the AI can learn, it's interacting with users, humans? Is it picking up a bias, right? Is it learning something that's then causing an unintended consequence? So, one of the features you're seeing in some of these laws are a proactive pre-deployment risk assessment audit, and it's leading to an entire industry of companies that are, claiming they can do this and are purporting to do this. And I suspect this is going to increase. Eventually, you'll probably have the big accounting firms doing something like this. The big consulting firms, there'll probably be eventually national standards for this type of auditing. We're just not there yet. We're kind of in the Wild West, and it's just all happening real time. The other thing you see is, in addition to kind of a pre-deployment audit or risk assessment, an annual risk assessment. And that's because these systems can learn, they can change, right? And in pre-deployment, it might seem fine, but after it's been working for a year, maybe it's picked up some bad tendency somewhere, and you're checking for that. The other thing they do is, if you make a substantial modification, you have to go through the process again. So, I think if you're forward thinking and really looking to the not too very distant future, you should be, vetting who's going to do this for us. What kind of organizations are going to perform this? Some of these laws require them to be independent, so you can do an internal audit, but you may need to comply with some of these laws, an independent auditor. So who are you going to get? What's their qualifications? How are they certifying, and what are they doing? Some other facets of these laws are transparency. So some would require you to post your audit results on your website. Others would require you, if you're using it, for example, hiring, to tell the candidate in advance that you're using an AI tool to help screen applicants. Some even further require either an opt-out option for candidates or a appeals process. But, those are very particular. I think from a just kind of general, what are we doing to show that we're using reasonable care to prevent foreseeable harm? I really think it's going to be that the auditing, the testing, the risk assessment, both at the front end, over the course of the use of the AI, and of course, if there's anything that's happened to change it. And so that's where I really think that people looking forward have to focus on. And most importantly is, this law is changing all the time. I don't know what state's going to be next, but there's going to be another state, and then there's going to be another state, and then there's going to be another state. So someone in the organization, right, has to keep their eye on that ball to figure out, okay, how are things changing? So now what do we need to do to adjust and to adapt and to make sure we're acting responsibly? And, when it comes time for these laws to take effect, we're doing the right thing.
Well, I'm glad that the point that you made in terms of trying to prevent foreseeable harm, that you did mention that this is so dynamic. It's evolving so quickly that you've got to keep abreast with how these laws are changing. So that's definitely a good call out. But again, as we start talking about these ethical considerations, I know it's not necessarily on the script, but I am interested and hope we get to it at some point in terms of somebody defining or one of you guys' explanation of what you consider agentic, because I hear people talking, so they can't even handle chatbots, and they're talking about agents. So it is interesting on me. I guess we'll double back unless somebody wants to jump in now. And in terms, especially with data scientists and so forth, what's your definition of agentic for those that may not, for the lay people?
Sure. So we can see two types of agents today. And when I say today, it's like it evolves very quickly. But today we have two types of agent, those chatbots that we now call conversational agents. You ask a question, it will use its knowledge or your enterprise data to find information relevant to your question, send that to a large language model, and then the large language model, it will reason to understand the user intent, the user question, find information in the content that was retrieved from that search mechanism, and then give you a contextual answer specifically on your question, but also with the past conversation. So it's aware of the context, it's aware usually on who you are, what do you have access to. So if you have a question about a particular document on SharePoint, it will understand, do you have access to that document? So it kind of have this intelligence of finding the information that works for you. So those are the conversational agent. ChatGPT is a good example of a conversational agent. And then we have a second category that is emerging. Those are autonomous agents. So those, you don't necessarily chat with them. They are here in the background, listening or waiting to be triggered by some kind of events. And those events could be very, very different, very wide variety of events. It could be you receive an email in your inbox and you haven't read the email, but the agent is already triggered and already analyzing the content of the email to prioritize this email. Should I show it to you right now, or should I wait because you just came back from vacation and this one is just like not really important right now? Or those agents can react on, hey, there's a new invoice that came into our ERP or CRM, or there is a new lead that has been detected because this customer, we are at the end of our renewal. They need to renew their contract with us. This agent proactively search for leads, search for content about your customers, and does some pre-work to show you, some content in advance. So those agents work in the background, can sometimes work for a long time. They can work on some task for several hours or several days because they are waiting for an approval on someone for an invoice or things like that. So those autonomous agents, they act in the background, typically for a department or for a group of employees. It can be working for a single employee, but it's rare. So those autonomous agents work in the background, and when they need you, they can contact you. They can ping you on Teams, they can ping you on Slack, they can ping you or wherever you usually chat, and can reach for help or can just give you conclusion or send you a draft of a new document via email saying, hey, I prepared that draft for you, or here's the notes for your next meeting. Those are agents that work behind the scene on your behalf.
Absolutely, please.
With something real quickly. I just want to say to this group right now, if you don't have agents in production at this point, it's okay. I won't. You're not too late. It's very early. As we listen to our legal expert talk about how we're still waiting for legislation to catch up here, I do want to say, investigate, come to things like this and learn about it, but don't feel like, well, maybe we'll catch the next AI wave. I hope we get that one. It is very early with agentic AI and agentic workflows. Great job being here and learning about it tonight. Stay curious, stay learning about it, look for the opportunities, find the people in your organizations who are interested, but please don't feel like, well, I missed the boat. You have not missed any boats. There are so many boats. These boats are going to be here for a while. So just want to make sure that in all of this talk, we offer a little reassurance about the state of agentic AI as well.
That's a great point. I mean, you almost need to stop thinking about the use case and then think about the business case. Go level up. How is this going to help the organization? Everything you can do doesn't mean you should do. But speaking about our legal expert, we'll go back to our legal expert with this next question. So we talked about the readiness, and we understand the readiness requires a multi-pronged approach, right? So we just discussed preparing our teams with valuable skills. So let's now turn to organizational readiness and compliance. So what practical steps may our audience take back to their teams to ensure they are leveraging agentic AIs responsibly from the start?
Yeah, so a lot of this goes back to what I just said. I mean, I think that first, being aware of what is out there in terms of coming legislation or legislation that's in certain places that will probably be replicated. And that's going back to this idea of risk assessments, audits, et cetera. So I think that, and it depends what you're using it for. If you're using it to read your emails, it's not going to trigger any of these compliance issues. But if you're using it to screen resumes and decide who gets that interview, that's when you're going to fall straight into this. If you're using it to figure out whether the loan gets approved or whether you qualify for the apartment, that's when these laws are going to come into full effect. So if you're using it for what they call consequential decisions, then you need to start thinking about, okay, what can we and should we be doing in terms of risk assessments, doing them on the front end, doing them, routinely, annually, or, it doesn't have to be annually, you can do it more. You can always exceed what's asked for. And making sure that through this process, you're protecting yourself as much as you can, and also protecting the people that the AI is going to touch, right? Because it's going to touch consumers, maybe. It's going to touch people applying for jobs or loans or insurance or whatever. And so that you're looking into, okay, what is out there? Who are these companies? Finding ones that seem reputable and capable and are focused on, the type of compliance you need. And then again, just staying on top of this kind of changing landscape. And look, there are applications that are not anything what we just talked about, but will have their own issues. You could talk about this forever. I mean, trust me, the FTC has brought a whole bunch of cases against companies that use facial recognition software to determine if you're a shoplifter, okay? And if there's a bias in that application, well, guess what happens, right? And so, I mean, if you have a self-driving car, you've got your own issues, right? I mean, if that's what you're doing. So depending on what you're using it for will depend on what you should be doing. But if you're trying to keep up with what seems to be the emerging law, it's this stuff that's allowing the agentic AI to autonomously make consequential decisions or assist in making those consequential decisions. So maybe it doesn't make the final decision, but it narrows the realm of candidates to a point where those who were excluded, you got to make sure they weren't excluded for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, that was a great point in terms of not just protecting yourselves, but protecting the end user as well. So Gina or Remy, any weigh in on organizational readiness?
Sure. And Gina, I absolutely agree with you. You're not too late. I work with a lot of large organizations, sometimes like in the Fortune 500. Some are around here in Atlanta, very big corporation that can do anything from, shipping, from, soda drinks. They are not ready. It takes time for them to be ready. I would say the bigger your organization, the more challenging it's going to be to adopt AI. So your advantage on the market is that you are more agile, more lean. You can make decisions faster. So start with that. Start with where you have a potential use case. So it's easy to say, but it's hard to find the right use case for AI. It could be a repetitive process that you're trying to streamline, or it could be retrieving knowledge for seasonal employee or new onboarding new employee or new customers. There's always, every organization has a golden use case. You just have to find it. Maybe organizations have multiple golden use cases, and they don't have to be complex. The value of AI is that it can transform a process that is inefficient into something that works for your organization, even at low cost. And that's the great power of AI. If it's just a chatbot to retrieve knowledge for your employee because you have customer service that has a high turnover, then this kind of solution is going to be awesome for you. It's going to save you time. It's going to make your customer satisfaction score go high. It's going to make your employee ready on day one. So it doesn't have to be complicated. So first, identify that use case. And second, be ready in terms of data. And we talked about it before the panel with Gina. AI by itself, it's great, okay? It can know a lot of things, but typically you don't use those AI models for what they've been trained on. You use those AI models to connect them to your data, to your emails, to your policies, to your knowledge bases. And once you connect them to those knowledge bases, and you have that like retrieval augmented generation pattern, like the RAG pattern that we hear a lot, then you can take advantage of all your unstructured or structured data and use that and leverage that as a differentiator versus your competitor that maybe are not there. So find your use case and get your data
Your
ready.
golden use case.
Find your golden use case, or find many use cases and then identify the one that is a home run. It doesn't have to be complicated, but it has to have a big impact on your business. And get your data ready, because SharePoint was not built to have an AI model connected to it. I know that. Many systems were not connected to AI first, and now we are finally there. We are finally making connection and retrieving the right data to answer the right question. It took a while for it to be efficient, to be accurate, to not hallucinate, to not make a mistake, and the consequence of that mistake. So getting your data ready is going to be, I think, the most important thing to be successful. Gina.
I mean, I love anytime we get to talk about data. So I love that you brought that up, Remy. Thank you for that. Totally agree. One other thing that I want to bring up that we haven't talked about yet this evening is the fact that, and I'm going to brag a little bit about Insight Global while I'm up here talking about this. We have shared values at Insight Global. And a lot of companies have, their corporate values or things like that. At Insight Global, we pride ourselves on the fact that shared values are something we talk about a lot, and they are part of our culture. And one of the first things that happened when AI started really becoming part of the hype scene is that I had broad support from leadership to set up AI principles. And we set up those AI principles in lockstep with Insight Global's shared values. One of those principles really does refer back to, we're not going to build AI systems that go outside of the lines of what Insight Global's shared values are designed to do. So as you're thinking about the use cases, as you're thinking about the data, as you're thinking about all those legal ideas and things that you need to prepare for, also take some time, carve out some time to think about, who are we as a company? What are we trying to accomplish with AI? What are those North Star principles we should set up before we ever build and deploy an AI model, to make sure that we have those to look back on with every model we build, every deployment we put out there, so that we have that to look back to. We have something that we can point to every time to say, our company builds AI that adheres to these principles. I want to put that out there as something that I am really grateful for and that I refer myself and my team back to with every single model that we develop.
This is a perfect way to put a bow on this before going to the audience questions, that maximizing this technology is only as good as the accuracy and accessibility of the data. So I mean, that's just a good call out to end. But we're going to the audience questions.
Okay.
Don't everybody speak at once. Trenny.
Belinda McDonald. Okay. My question is possibly, how would you direct over reliance on agentic AI as it grows and evolves and becomes, so intelligent that, we can't think of what to wear tomorrow without consulting the AI? I don't know. You know,
That's,
how would
that's
you
a
say?
wife. That's not AI. But that's completely different. But
Got to give me one of those.
anybody?
Sure. So AI is not going to take over your job and make you obsolete. I don't think so. And it will only do what you allow it to do. So you talk about security and governance as a step zero. Yes, finding your use case and your data is great. Making sure that you have the right guardrails in place is also crucial when you start that journey. And maybe some AI will take over part of your job, part of your day-to-day Q&A. Like, I have so many people asking me questions over Teams. I created an agent to answer those questions based on my usual answer. And that helps me because it can remove boring, repetitive tasks that I don't bring a lot of value to that. And AI can do that as much as I can. After, you will have to, of course, draw the line. Where are we stopping to use AI and for what? And it brings back to the first question, like what is the human touch? Empathy, vision, kindness, being in control is what makes us human. And I don't think AI can replace human for many, many different tasks. You cannot have an AI agent that runs your entire customer support because your customers are going to figure out it's an AI and it's not going to work all the time. But if it's sometimes with the right dose, that will work and that will solve a problem. But I don't think AI will take over all of your job and all of your, day-to-day tasks. First, it's not ready. It's not there yet. And second, like we design it. We put the limit. We say when it works and when it doesn't, when it's connected and when it's offline. Gina or Joe? Go ahead.
So I have a 15-year-old daughter who has asked ChatGPT about her boy problems. So when we're talking about over-reliance on AI, I'm feeling like, why is my daughter asking ChatGPT? But you know what else came out of that? Is she came to me and she's like, Mom, you do something with AI for your job. And I was like, yes, honey, I do something with AI for my job. But she was like, Mom, this answer about boys is not that great from ChatGPT. And I said, that tracks. I get that. Honey, what can we talk about? What's going on? Like, let's talk more. To Remy's point, we run AI. We are the ones who give it those guardrails. We are the ones who give it those instructions. AI is good at answering questions. It does not feel feelings. It cannot show empathy, as I believe was pointed out at the beginning. Yet, it's fair. But, that is the opportunity that we continue to have as humans in this human-centric look at AI to make sure, where are we stepping up? Where are we offering that value? Where are we making sure that we are bringing those skills, our empathy, our compassion to the conversations, to our business? Where is that part of our brand and our culture to make sure that there are some parts of that, again, where AI is not going to be able to deliver it. So how do we make sure that we are? So that would be my recommendation, is look for those opportunities for where it needs to be human. Make sure that that stays part of how you direct, that AI usage in your roles.
Just for the record, I would absolutely take relationship advice from AI.
You gonna go ask ChatGPT about this?
I would.
You let me know how that goes. I'm super curious.
Gina, you mentioned earlier, like, it's not because you can put AI everywhere. Like, should you put AI everywhere? And I think it's part of a discussion around responsible AI. AI should be transparent. You should be able to explain what the AI is doing. It should be secure. It should follow your instructions and your guardrails. And sometimes there will be ethical question, and that's where humans step in and should decide, should the AI be responsible for that part of the job? Should AI be filtering resume? Should AI maybe for some reason, I don't know. It's a conversation that you need to have with your HR department, with your legal department. Can we or should we use that technology everywhere? It's not a. I don't have an answer. It's a question for everybody.
Yeah, we have another question.
We have one more question over here, and then I'll get to the other one, which will be our last question.
Hi, Caroline Albaugh from Shellman, an IT compliance attestation firm. So you're talking a lot about guardrails and that if you're going to do AI, you need to start thinking about what that might mean for your organization. Where would you start when it comes to laws and compliance and standards? There's been a lot of standards out there all of a sudden coming out. So if you were saying to someone who's just getting started, what compliance frameworks would you look at or what laws would you look at?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So there
It
is.
depends.
Well, yeah, that's the sad answer, right? That it depends. But right now, well, I'll say a few things. There are not that many state AI laws out there, and they're somewhat similar. So from that, we're going back to, okay, do I need to think about an independent auditor or risk examiner? Who are the companies out there? Do I need to vet one? Do I need to see who my peers in the industry are using? Do I need to see if this company is specializing in the type of thing I'm doing? So I think that's part of it. Having somebody in the organization or an outside lawyer or in-house counsel or whatever, just keeping a view on this. I mean, there's a federal organization that puts forth guidelines, but I really think they're going to be supplanted by these state laws in time. So you got to start there. But the other thing to not lose sight of is there are a ton of existing laws that protect against discrimination. The American with Disabilities Act provide for anti-discrimination in housing, lending, you name it. And then there's just good old common law negligence that you fail to exercise reasonable care to prevent foreseeable harm. And there's a legion of plaintiffs' lawyers. And if they find that somebody is using one of these tools in a way that they think their client, or even worse, an entire class of people have been harmed by this, they'll let you know in the form of a lawsuit. And so this is all going to get sorted out in two different ways, right? So you're going to have the legislation, and some of that might get challenged, and then you're still going to have these court cases. And all the ones you see right now are not brought under these AI acts because these AI acts aren't new enough. They're all brought under the old-fashioned anti-discrimination laws, unfair trade practices laws. So it's just, thinking back to yourself, pretend it's not your AI agent, but just a human being, right? That person can't go discriminate. That person can't, mislead consumers. So at some level, it's the same, right? But now you're dealing with the technology that you have to understand and that is harder to figure out than just counseling, HR counseling the sales rep, for example, right? I mean, it's more complicated than that. So look, this is developing. I say they're sprouting up like mushrooms. They are. I mean, there are going to be more and more organizations. It's crazy. It's almost like in the beginning, before there was GAAP. What did we do before GAAP accounting? I don't know. It was ancient history, but someday this is going to be ancient history, and all this is going to get solved.
Yeah. Last question.
Yes, thank you. Hello, everyone. And thank you to our panelists. This is great. I am Linda Patterson, and I'm currently in transition for everyone in the room. So, but I work for an organization similar to TechBridge called GenSpark. Now, two things started to happen with GenSpark. Number one, my staff started to use AI in their emails, so using Copilot and things of that nature. And so I had to address that because they were coming up with writing styles that I know that they don't have. The other thing is that the students actually started to use ChatGPT, for example, to try to actually code with ChatGPT. So they were cheating with the coding as well. So I work with HR to put in a policy around that kind of scared them because you can kind of you can monitor it, but you kind of can't. So we put in a policy to try to scare the students a little bit into not doing that and talk to them about the appropriate use of AI in our class. So I wanted to get your opinion on policies that organizations can write. They can partner with their HR departments to write policies for just that day-to-day use at your desk of AI.
I'm gonna let Rami take the first shot.
Thank you. So that's a very good question, and I think it opens a lot of discussion. First, like using Copilot in your emails. When I ask Copilot to rewrite my email, yeah, it's absolutely not my style. I don't like it. I will use Copilot to edit typo, but I will never use it to write an entire email and press send. Because yes, it doesn't feel natural, and I agree with that. But the bigger concern is if I use AI to cheat, to write an essay, to write code, what's the harm? Yes, if there will be, and I think it's still an ongoing discussion, there will be a difference between a student or an employee using AI versus a student and an employee not having access to AI. And I think this organization also help people to get access technology, because I see technology as a positive impact. Like when internet came, organizations were like, should we give internet to our employees? Do you imagine today working without internet? I think it will be kind of the same with AI. Okay, it's a different issue when you have to learn something. You have to pass a bachelor, you have to take an exam. Okay, you write your paper, you use AI to write your code. I think it's an ethical concern. I don't think we have the solution yet. Maybe you have a point of view on that. I don't. My kids are too young to use AI to write code yet. Maybe we'll see in a couple of years. But I can tell you that in today's workforce at Microsoft, people use AI to be better at their job. And should we tell our kids or students not to use AI? Because once they graduate and once they go into the regular workforce, their company is going to give them maybe a laptop if they are lucky. And on that laptop, there will be Office, Excel, Word, Outlook, and Copilot. Because now it's going to be part of the default set of capabilities that your laptop has. Like you don't ask if your laptop has internet, and tomorrow you won't ask if your laptop has a AI assistant.
Yeah. Yep. We have one last question, right?
Yeah, I have one question. Great conversation so far, but I think I take the opposite side of the whole ethics argument here. And where I'm coming from this is I just think regulations just don't move fast enough with the pace of the technology. And talking about ethics is like putting the cart before the horse, in my opinion here. And it's like very similar arguments were raised with when the genome sequencing or gene editing was coming up, right? But now with technologies like CRISPR, you can get sickle cell disease cured very easily. So are we just like stifling innovation by having a lot of this talk about ethics here?
All right, you had to save the hardest question for last, right? No, you really did, and I don't even know how to answer it in the sense that if there's a regulation, obviously you can't ignore it. This is really a matter of policy, right? I mean, so you can overregulate anything. Let's be honest about that. Talk to someone that works in the EU about regulation, and they'll give you an earful. But at the same time, you can't stop it, right? I mean, the state of Colorado passed an AI Act, and you do business in Colorado, and you're using agentic AI to make consequential decisions. There's no way you can avoid it. I totally see that there's a balance, and I mean, clearly, if you're using AI in a positive way that's curing diseases, but I'm not even sure that the regulations would focus on that, right? Right now, the regulations are focused on discrimination. Let's be honest, for the most part, that's where they're focused on. And where will they go beyond that is anybody's game, really. I mean, we have to see what the next harm is, right? I think the discrimination harm is one that was perceived to be possible before it even happened. And from the very onset, I mean, that was always the focus of the concerns, right? Is using AI systems in ways that are going to have a disproportionate impact on a population or on a consumer, or on a person. So, I mean, I think that's just the reality. And again, those laws and those concerns dovetail with existing laws, right? So you're never going to be able to avoid existing laws. But yeah, I mean, you've got to find a way not to stifle innovation in that sense. And I mean, I think that there's a whole school of thought to not regulate this as much. But again, right now, the regulation seems to be on what I would call discriminatory harm for the most part. And that's where it's thick, right? And that's where we'll also intersect with existing law.
Yeah.
I think there is another domain where regulation comes in play in AI is how we train those models. If you're familiar with training a large language model, it ingests a gigantic quantity of text information, video information, images. And to be fully transparent, there is a lawsuit against Microsoft from the New York Times at the moment because OpenAI trains their model on, and Microsoft owns a part of OpenAI, so that's why OpenAI and Microsoft are both in a lawsuit. They train their model on everything they can find on internet, whether or not they are allowed to do it, because we don't have regulation. Because people are saying, if I, as a user, I have access to the New York Times or Wikipedia or whatever knowledge on the internet, why should my crawler that is going to ingest all of your IP and knowledge and energy and time that it took you to create that content, I'm going to ingest all of that for free because a human can have access to it for free. And there is not regulation about that. Like there is a big void. Should we allow any AI company to ingest everything they can just for the sake of innovation? I don't know. I cannot find a clear answer. I do think that content creators should be rewarded, and many companies are making partnership with AI companies like OpenAI. They have partnership with many different news outlets and content creators to ingest those content and pay them back for their work. And now X is starting to charge if you want to crawl their content using their API, because they have their own IP with their own AI model internally with XAI. So now it's a race to who gets the better model. And to do the better model, to create that frontier model, you need that knowledge, you need that information. And right now, regulation is struggling with that.
There isn't any. And
there isn't any?
Yeah, none. I mean, the Copyright Office has come up with some decisions, but this is all going to get played out in the courts.
And should we bypass regulation for the sake of going fast? And we saw DeepSeek in China, they took some shortcuts, to be clear, and they decided to release a model that was outperforming many other models at the fraction of the cost, because they took some shortcuts, and they made some decision to reuse some of the training set that were already available. I think we should ask the question at least. Maybe it will slow things down a little bit. I don't think it's that dramatic, but yeah, it's a good question. We'll see what the future holds on that.
Well, you guys, please help me give it up for this wonderful panel. Wonderful. Thank you. And I'm going to bring my good buddy Dwayne up to close this out. But before I do that, I'd be remiss if I talk about Dwayne without talking about his cohort, his leader. Who else gets to get an ex-CIO, ex-CEO as their chief of staff? I mean, who gets that? So Penny. But come on, buddy, close us out.
Thank you. Give the panel and Brian another round of applause. I'm sure I'm not the only one who's very sad that this has to end. I was fascinated, and of course it takes Mirza, who just ends with the perfect zinger. You could just feel the panel's reaction to that, like, wow, okay, all right. I thought I was gonna ease on out of this thing, but I had to really like juice it up. 3 things I just noted for myself that I'm taking away from the conversation tonight. First, keep Brian away from Gina. Note to self. I caught the pitch. I don't miss nothing he's thrown out there. I'm noticing that. I got her covered. We got her taken care of. But first, you all are amazing for being here. So please give yourself a round of applause. I think there was a lot of educational moments tonight when we even think from our representative, just talking about the state we live in. A state that understands, you hear a lot of we're number one in business, but we're not resting on our laurels around that. We believe the future growth for the best of our state, for the best of those of us who live here and reside here, comes from the investment of what technology can do. There's real interest into that, and it's special to be part of a state that believes in that. Another takeaway, the difference between the conversational AI and the AI that's operating as a waiting agent in the background. I am really enjoying the conversational AI, period. And no, I'm not getting wife advice, but although maybe not a bad idea, I can do better. I can probably do better. Maybe I peek into that. But we're just getting into the autonomous state of things, of ready state agents we can lean into. I thought Remy really laid that point extremely well. Last but not least, for me, there was two themes that really stood out: intentionality and adaptability. Gina talked about intentionality of what we've done at Insight Global, living out our shared values, how the intentionality to the topic, we carried that, and we're carrying that with us as we're thinking about it. Joe really hit on the point of this. There's a lot of like Wild Wild West. I think if I had a coin word, you said that a lot tonight, right?
Because it is.
It is, right? There's a lot of
Where we are.
uncertainty. So the intentionality has to be brought with adaptability, because the evolving regulatory landscape is going to require us to adapt. The fact that you're here already shows that you're already embodying that. And I'll leave you with this. Abraham Lincoln is famously quoted for saying, "The best way to predict the future is to build it." Thank you for being here and being a builder. Have a great rest of the evening, and thank you to our panelists once again. You all have a great night.